The Seiko SNK807 is a beautiful, reliable, and very polyvalent watch. It's no wonder why it's so damn popular. I know there are dozens of Seiko SNK reviews out there, but since this is my favorite watch, I simply have to express how I feel about it. Not only will I review this Seiko 5, I will also give my 1-year ownership update. So stay tuned to hear about the specs, styling, and general ownership experience of the SNK807. As always, I'll kick off the video by looking at the measurements of the watch. The case diameter is 37 millimeters, the lug-to-lug length is 43 millimeters, the lug width is 18 millimeters, and finally, the case thickness is 10.5 millimeters. As you can see on my 6¼ inch wrist, the SNK807 has a very small frame. In my opinion, it will look good on people with wrist sizes between 5¾ to 7 inches. Notice that I say people here and not men, because in my opinion, this Seiko 5 has a unisex styling. Not only is it small, it also has a very thin profile for a mechanical watch. This means you can wear it with long sleeves dress shirt without a problem, as it will slide right under your cuffs. The first component I want to talk about is the crystal. Since this is an entry-level timepiece, Seiko equipped it with their Hardlex mineral crystal, which in my opinion is just a notch above competition when it comes to mineral crystal. To give an example, I've bought this Orient Mako 2 a couple months ago, and within the first week or two of owning it, I've put a pretty big scratch on top of the crystal. Whereas this Seiko 5 I've owned for over a year, and apart from a few micro scratches, the crystal has no major flaws. From a reasonable distance, it still looks brand new. So this is a very good point for the Seiko 5. Next, I want to talk a bit about the push and pull crown, which is situated at the 4 o'clock position. It is used to operate both the day-date display and the time, and it works pretty well. It is very crisp, very sharp. I never had any problem with it. The only problem is that since this is a push and pull crown, the water resistance on this piece isn't that great. It comes in at 30 meters, which means you cannot take it for a swim. This is no big deal to me because obviously I've got a couple diver watches in my collection, but if this is your one and only timepiece, it might be a bit of a bummer. As we flip the watch over, we can see Seiko's 7S26 automatic caliber. If you're familiar with Seiko watches, you've certainly heard about this caliber before. It has been used by Seiko for a couple decades now. This is the third iteration, which is why it is called the 7S26C. And this is a very reliable movement, super durable. You can expect it to last for upwards of 10 years without needing a single service, which is amazing for such a cheap watch. The accuracy is good, not great. In my experience, it will gain or lose about 10 seconds per day. I'm not an accuracy freak, so I'm perfectly okay with it. If you're not familiar with the specs of the 7S26, it is a 21 joules movement that beats at a low frequency of 21,600 beats per hour, and it has an estimated power reserve of 40 hours. It is a pretty basic, pretty bare bones movement, so it doesn't have hand winding, nor does it have hacking. We're now going to take a look at the styling of the SNK807. The first thing I want to talk about is the color of the dial. As you can see here, I've put up pictures found on websites such as Amazon or Joma Shop, and in these pictures, the SNK807 looks bright blue. the dial almost has a sky blue color. In fact, this is not true at all. The SNK807's dial is much darker than it looks on picture. In my opinion, it looks more like a deep navy blue. So I was kind of disappointed when I first got the watch because I was hoping for something very colorful, very bright, and this isn't what I got. Ever since I've equipped it with this brown leather band, I kind of fell in love with the combination, so the dial's color doesn't bother me as much. But if you're looking for something super colorful, you will certainly be disappointed. Now, I want to talk a bit about the numerals. For the outer ring of the dial, you get white Arabic numerals for every 5 minutes mark, whereas the inner ring of the dial gets white Arabic numerals for every hour mark. This makes for a super easy to read dial. I've never had problem telling the time on this watch. Also, the bright red tip of the seconds hand increases legibility even more. So this is a very easy to read timepiece, guys. As we move closer to the center of the dial, we can see the minutes and hours lozenge hands, which is a style that I like very much. It is quite peculiar, and usually on cheap watches such as this one, watchmakers will put very basic hands such as batons or sword hands, which can get a bit boring. Whereas Seiko had nice attention to detail here to put lozenge hands. The seconds hand is a bit more conventional. It has a needle shape with a small circle at the end for the lume. This brings me to my next subject, which is the lume. Of course, this is a Seiko watch, so it has been applied with their LumiBrite application on the hands as well on these lume pips at the extremity of every hour mark. As you can see on my lume shot, this is a very functional lume. I've never had problem telling the time in a darker setting, but of course it won't be as bright or as durable as your SKX's lume. Next, we can talk a bit about the finish of the case. The fixed stainless steel bezel, as well as the case sides, has a nice brushed finish, which I love a lot because I think it contributes to the field/beater watch styling of the Seiko 5. So this is a very great finish in my opinion. But as you flip the watch over, you can see that the screw down case back is polished and beveled a little bit. You also get a Hardlex crystal to peek through the 7S26 movement at work. The last thing I want to talk about is the strap that comes from factory. It is originally equipped with this blue nylon strap here, and to be 100% honest, I've never even tried it on. I'm pretty used to buying Seiko watches, so I know that the weakest link on these affordable timepieces is almost certainly the strap. So I didn't even bother trying it on. I simply ordered the SNK807 with a couple replacement bands. And as I said earlier, I fell in love with this light brown leather strap. I think it contrasts greatly with the dial, and it reminds me of a brown shoes with jeans type of deal, which I like very much. Also, the white stitching goes really well with the white Arabic numerals and hands. I've also bought this blue leather band, which I've worn maybe 3 or 4 times, but I got sick of it really quick. Unless you're a big fan of the blue color, then you might want to get this strap, but if not, I strongly suggest you stick with this light brown leather strap as it looks amazing. To conclude this video, I'm now going to give a few points I've noticed during my 1-year ownership of the Seiko SNK807. First, I want to say that this is a super comfortable timepiece. I have kind of a weird wrist shape, so watches will usually lay crooked on top of my wrist, whereas this Seiko 5 lays perfectly flat. making for a very comfortable experience. Also, the lugs are well machined by Seiko, so they are smooth and they will not hurt your wrist. This is a problem I encounter when buying cheap watches because they usually won't be as well finished as higher end watches, so the lugs can be a bit sharp and dig into your wrist throughout the day. This is not a problem you will have with this Seiko 5. Also, even if it doesn't look like it, it is a very sturdy timepiece. I'm someone that's pretty clumsy, so I've hit this watch on tons of furnitures. I've dropped it at least 4 or 5 times from pretty decent heights, and it took the beating just fine. The movement is still as accurate as it ever was, and the crystal and case show no visible sign of damages. As we look through the window, we can see that the 7S26 isn't the most beautiful movement out there, but I'm very happy to have an exhibition window because a couple times a day, I will find myself just playing around with the oscillating weight, kind of being mesmerized by it. So even if it's not that beautiful, I'm still happy to have this window just to fidget around all day with it. And the final thing I want to say is that throughout the whole year I've owned this watch, I haven't received a single comment on it. This doesn't mean it isn't a beautiful watch. What it means is that it is very subtle. This will not bring much attention to your wrist because to the average population, this looks like any other watch. It will fly under the radar. Of course, other watch enthusiasts will certainly acknowledge how good of a watch this is, and they will recognize that Seiko makes great timepieces, but to normal people, it's just any other watch. So if you're looking for something that will grab people's attention and then bring you a lot of comments, this is not a watch for you. But if you're looking for something subtle and classy, it will be perfect. So there's really nothing much more to add, except maybe buy it, buy it, buy it. This is an excellent watch. I cannot recommend it enough. Either buy it for yourself, buy it for a friend. I can guarantee that you will not regret your purchase. So there's nothing much more to say. So please leave a comment if you enjoyed the video and have a nice day.